The boy slowly lowered his back and swallowed all the nails in the plate. Immediately afterward, he deliberately acted as if he was stuck. Everyone thought the boy didn't want to live. Who knew that the next second, he spat out an egg from his mouth, followed by another one. The spectators were so impressed that they threw in silver coins to show their appreciation. The first thing he did when he got home, the boy asked his mother to shake him. The harder she shook him, the more coins fell. Although the coins made his mother very happy, but as a magician, Houdini wasn't satisfied. The money he earned could only provide for his family's subsistence and not change their fate. He knew that in order to become a top magician, he had to innovate his own magic show. When he grew up, Houdini wanted to become famous. That day, he brought a handful of cash and threw it on the warden's desk. He threatened that this prison couldn't hold him, and that if he didn't believe him, he could try. The warden, feeling insulted, locked his hands firmly and put him in a steel cage. He said if he couldn't escape, he'd be locked up forever for disturbing the peace. To prevent Houdini from hiding the key in his mouth, the warden checked his mouth. He didn't realize that the key was not in his mouth, but in his throat. As soon as the warden left, he pushed the key up from his throat. With this escape, Houdini's reputation was made. But making a name for himself was only the first step on the road to success. He was going to take advantage of the media frenzy to play a bigger game. The vulture was biting the boy's beak. The boy came to his senses in an instant and grabbed the vulture and dropped it straight to its death. The vulture fell off the cliff. The boy got down on the edge of the cliff and looked, and my goodness, below was a cliff hundreds of meters high, and right above the boy is the same straight cliff. Now he can't climb up. He can't get down. He had no choice but to scream for help, but in the middle of this huge cliff, who could hear him? The boy plucked up his courage and climbed down the cliff face, but soon he lost his footing, so he reached for a nearby bulge. But suddenly, his foot slipped. He lost control of his body and almost fell off the cliff. Luckily, he was able to hold on to the rocky outcrop with both hands. He looked down, and the hundreds of meters of abyss scared him so much that he shivered. Suddenly, the boy began to cry out for help, but his voice echoed for a long time in the empty canyon, and still there was not a single response. To make matters worse, a heavy rain poured down. The boy had already lost his grip. Now the rain is making the walls even more slippery. He looked down. The rain below had gathered rapidly into a river. At that moment he had an idea. Now, if the rain is deep enough, the better his chances of survival. At that moment, his fingers suddenly slipped. He wanted to jump straight down, but now was not the time. The boy grabs on again with all his might. Thus, he breaks his physical limit. He held on for another half hour, seeing the rainwater gathering deeper and deeper. By now, the boy's arm was in pain. Jack couldn't hold on any longer. He let go of his hand and jumped straight off a 100-meter high cliff. After a long time, the boy woke up from his coma. He realized his ankle might be broken. He was unable to walk and had to crawl all the way, climbed to a pool and gulped down muddy water. After drinking the water, he took off his shoes and realized that his foot was bruised and swollen like a ball of meat. So he stuck his foot between the rocks. Then he swung his body hard. With a crunching sound, his ankle was instantly restored. Then he took a stick and fixed it on both sides of his ankle, though now he could only walk slowly. But the boy's heart was satisfied. He limped for who knows how long before he reached the cliff. But instead of seeing his father, he found his own tombstone. The boy was furious, for it showed that his father had given up on him. He kicked all the rocks off the cliff with his other foot. After venting his anger, the boy lay on the ground in pain. But then he suddenly heard a wolf howling. He turned his head and saw a pack of wolves on a hill not far away. Jack had no choice but to endure the pain and leave the area. Unexpectedly, the wolves caught up with him. He was about to climb up a tree when a wolf bit him from behind. As a matter of urgency, the boy drew his dagger and stabbed the wolf. The boy climbed up to the top of the tree and saved his life. But the wolves below still won't leave. At night they howled at the full moon. It was a fascinating and dangerous sight in the moonlight. But the next day, the wolves finally left. Only the wounded gray wolf remained. The boy made a simple spear out of a dagger and a stick. Then he raised it high in the air and prepared to end the wolf's life. But listening to his whimpering on the ground, the boy's heart went soft. He still couldn't be as cruel as his father. Not only that, but the kind boy was going to save the wolf next. Man realizes blind date is a scammer. In order to keep his wallet, he first pretended to be a lamb to be slaughtered. The woman says, "Let's open a bottle of wine to cheer up the party." The man says, "Sure." The woman ordered a $6,000 bottle of red wine. In order to get himself out of this situation, he decided to start fighting back against the woman and the store. He said, "This cell phone battery is really not durable. It will die in a while." He pretended that he couldn't pay because his cell phone was dead. He took out his rechargeable cell phone and plugged in the cable and put it in a conspicuous place. The man said, "Can I use your cell phone to make a call?" The woman lent him her cell phone without any precaution. While he was making the call, a couple of strong men were also watching him intently. The man sees through it, but doesn't say anything. When he came back from the phone call, the man pretended to say that his friend was going to call him back later, and asked to leave his cell phone with him first. The woman agreed without hesitation, because she was sure that the prey in front of her would not be able to escape today, so she didn't think too much about it. The man took the woman's cell phone with him, picked up his wallet and pretended to go to the checkout. He intentionally left his cell phone on the table so as not to arouse the suspicion of the woman. The cashier said, "You have spent a total total of $8,850. The man was not surprised, but acted calm and collected. The man saw that the whole gang was watching him secretly, so he pretended to take a bunch of cash from his bag and counted it, but it wasn't more than $8,000. He deliberately put the cash back into the bag. In fact, he put the cash in his own pocket. Then he put his wallet on the bar. A man came in and said, "Whose car is that Rolls Royce out there?" He said, "It's my car. What's wrong?" The man said, "Move it. It's blocking the road." Unbeknownst to him, this was the friend the man had called. The waiter didn't think much of it. His wallet was still on the bar. A couple of strong men were watching the man's movements. The man got into the passenger side and slipped away. They panicked and rushed to the bar to look at his wallet. The cash inside had turned into a pile of white paper. A few people were dumbfounded. The woman hurriedly picked up his charging cell phone to take a look, but found that the phone is also a model. Cannot be turned on. She then remembered that the man had made a small move when he was putting it back, and put the real cell phone on another layer. What he got out was just a model phone. When the man went to the checkout, he secretly put the real cell phone into his pocket. Thinking about it, the woman was speechless. Several people also rushed to chase out, but it didn't help, because the man had already escaped with the woman's cell phone. This unlucky man has been cursed. As soon as he takes a sip of water, he is instantly transported to the desert. The water in his mouth turns into sand. No matter where he is, he can't escape this fate. Just now, the man was transported to the desert again when he drank water. The man doesn't know what to do, but in order to survive, he must escape as soon as possible. He crossed the yellow sand and mountains. After 79 days, the man finally came to an oasis and saw a clear stream. The man was so happy, he immediately fell on the ground and drank. But the next moment, the man was back in the desert and ate a mouthful of sand. Looking at the yellow sand in the sky, the man went crazy. After venting, the man cursed and continued his journey. After another 79 days, the man came to the oasis again and saw a familiar stream. He immediately jumped to the stream and drank the water. Not surprisingly, he was back in the desert. After countless rounds of this cycle, the man finally realized he was cursed. When he came to the stream again, he finally refrained from taking a sip of the water and walked straight to it. The yellow sky did not fail him. He finally got out of the desert and onto the highway. A car happened to pass by. The man was ecstatic. He's finally saved. The driver agreed to give him a ride. The kind driver handed him a bottle of water. The man didn't think twice about it. He unscrewed the cap and poured it into his mouth. He ends up with a mouthful of yellow sand, and the man is furious. He starts all over again. He came back to the highway and met the kind driver again. The driver offered the man water again, and the man refused immediately. After 981 difficulties, the exhausted man finally returned home. He jumped on the sofa and fell asleep, but just then, the sound of water dripping from the faucet woke him up. Thirsty, he couldn't help but take a glass of water and add a few thin ice cubes to it. He wanted to quench his thirst, but the more he looked, the thirstier he got. So he dipped his finger in the water, put it in his mouth and sucked. Then he closed his eyes and waited for bad luck to strike. But this time it didn't happen. Surprisingly, after repeated attempts, the man started to get bold. He picked up the glass and drank it all in one gulp. It felt better than ever. The man felt that this was not enough. He went to the swimming pool and rushed into it. The feeling of being immersed in water is too good to be true. However, he was only handsome for 3 seconds. The man was once again transported back to the desert. It turns out that the curse was there all along. This made the man cry. The man returned to the city again. At this moment, he was sitting in the corner, looking so hopeless. Suddenly, he remembered someone. Maybe she can save him from the curse. Do you think the man will succeed? Jack, because here all slaves must hand in the diamonds they find, or else they would end up like this. But Jack soon got lucky. That day, while panning for gold, and it was pink in color, and in those days, this diamond was enough to buy a city. Jack panicked at the sight, but he had to make it into it. At that moment, Jack bent down and caught the diamond between his toes. Then and thus Jack escaped. He came to a place. A pistol suddenly appeared behind him. My God, what should this handsome man do?